The royal chamber echoed with panicked voices as Jackson Merritt rushed through the ornate doorway, medical kit clutched tightly in his hands. The human medic had been stationed on Lemuria for barely 3 weeks. Hardly enough time to learn the complex customs of the alien civilization, let alone the intensely guarded protocols surrounding their queen. "Stand back," he ordered, surprising himself with his own authority as the royal guards with their iridescent armor reluctantly created space around the fallen monarch. Queen Ilara lay on the polished obsidian floor, her purple skin ashen and dull. Blonde wavy hair splayed around her like a halo. A dark blue fluid, blood Jackson assumed, pooled beneath her midsection. The assassination attempt had been swift and nearly successful. A ceremonial blade had found its mark before the attacker was subdued. "She's losing too much blood," Jackson muttered, his trained eyes quickly assessing the wound. "I need to work now or she won't survive the next 10 minutes. The lead guard, Torrent, towered over him. "Our royal physicians are en route, human. You are not authorized to—" "They won't get here in time," Jackson interrupted, already cutting away the queen's ceremonial garments with sterile shears. "This isn't about authorization anymore. It's about keeping her alive." The guard's expression darkened, but he stepped back with a reluctant nod. Jackson worked with practiced efficiency, exposing the wound on the queen's lower abdomen. The blade had penetrated deep, damaging what appeared to be a vital organ unique to the Lemurian anatomy. He administered a universal coagulant and began the delicate work of repairing what he could with the limited knowledge he had of alien physiology. His hands moved across her body, applying pressure to specific nerve points to reduce shock while simultaneously working to close the wound. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he utilized every technique in his extensive training. "I need something to stabilize this organ," he called out. "It's similar to a human spleen but seems connected to her endocrine system." An attendant nervously offered a translucent, gel-like substance. "This is royal biogel, meant only for the queen's private physicians." Jackson nodded gratefully, applying the substance with careful precision. His fingers traced along several areas of the queen's torso that, unknown to him, were considered deeply intimate and sacred in Lemurian culture, places where only royal family members or consorts were ever permitted to touch. After nearly an hour of intense work, Queen Ilara's vital signs stabilized. Jackson exhaled deeply, finally stepping back from his patient. "She'll live," he announced, wiping blue blood from his hands. "But she needs rest and careful monitoring." As the royal physicians finally arrived, their expressions shifted from concern to shock at the scene before them. Their queen, partially undressed, her sacred places exposed, and a human with his hands still blue from her royal blood. Queen Ilara's consciousness returned slowly, like swimming through dark waters toward a distant light. Her first sensation was pain, sharp and insistent, followed by the disorienting awareness of being in her private chambers rather than the ceremonial hall where the attack had occurred. Memory fragments rushed back. The glint of a blade, a burning sensation in her abdomen, then darkness. Her eyelids fluttered open to reveal the concerned faces of her royal attendants hovering nearby. "Your Majesty lives," breathed Sentinel Torrent, relief evident in his usually stoic expression. "The human medic intervened when our physicians couldn't reach you in time." "Human medic?" Queen Ilara's voice was hoarse. She attempted to sit up, wincing as pain lanced through her midsection. "Yes, my queen. The one from the Earth delegation," explained Attendant Vessa. He had to perform emergency procedures to save your life." Something in Vessa's hesitant tone triggered alarm. Queen Ilara's eyes narrowed as she looked down at her body, now dressed in healing garments, but the memory of violation suddenly crystal clear. "Where is this human now?" she demanded, her voice gaining strength with rising anger. "He waits outside, Your Majesty. The High Council wishes to speak with him about his methods." Queen Ilara's face hardened. "Bring him to me first." Minutes later, Jackson entered the royal chamber, escorted by 2 guards who gripped his arms with unnecessary force. Despite his disheveled appearance, still wearing scrubs stained with blue blood, he maintained a dignified posture. "You touched my private parts?" The queen's accusation echoed through the chamber, her voice trembling with rage and something deeper: humiliation. Jackson blinked, momentarily confused before understanding dawned. Cultural briefings had mentioned sacred bodily zones, but hadn't specified their locations or the severity of taboo. "Your Majesty," I was treating life-threatening injuries, he explained, meeting her gaze directly. The blade damaged internal organs that required immediate attention. I had no choice if you were to survive. No choice? She spat. You violated our most sacred customs, parts of me that even royal physicians must avoid unless given explicit permission through ancient rituals. I didn't know, Jackson admitted, but even if I had, I would have made the same decision. Your life was worth more than protocol in that moment. The chamber fell silent, attendants frozen in shock at his bluntness. Queen Alara's luminescent eyes widened, unused to such directness. You dare speak to me this way, she whispered. I speak as a medic whose only concern was saving your life, Jackson replied, softening his tone. Where I come from, nothing is more important than preserving life. Not status, not custom, not even personal comfort. Queen Alara studied him, her anger momentarily giving way to curiosity. This human was either exceptionally brave or foolishly ignorant of the consequences of his actions. Either way, his unwavering conviction was unexpected. Leave us, she commanded suddenly. The attendants exchanged worried glances but obeyed, filing out until only Torrent remained by the door. Your actions have created a diplomatic crisis, she informed Jackson once they were alone. Some on the council are calling for severe punishment, even execution. Jackson paled but stood his ground. I understand the gravity of the situation, Your Majesty, but I can't apologize for saving your life. A flash of something, respect, perhaps, flickered across the Queen's face before she composed herself. You will remain confined to the medical wing until I decide your fate, she declared, her tone imperious despite the storm of conflicting emotions beneath. Perhaps next time you will consider that some things might be worse than death to certain cultures. As Jackson was led away, neither could have guessed how prophetic those words would prove, though not in the way either of them imagined. 3 days had passed since Queen Alara's confrontation with Jackson. Her physical recovery progressed well, but her thoughts remained turbulent, returning constantly to the human medic confined to the medical wing. She'd reviewed the security recordings of the assassination attempt and her subsequent treatment multiple times, watching with increasing fascination the controlled urgency of Jackson's movements as he worked to save her. Your Majesty, Sentinel Torrent announced from the doorway of her private study, the council awaits your decision regarding the human. Alara nodded absently, gazing out at the crystalline spires of her capital city. Tell them I will render judgment tomorrow. I wish to question him once more. Later that evening, Jackson was escorted to a small antechamber adjacent to the Queen's personal quarters, a significant departure from the formal throne room where judgments were typically delivered. He entered cautiously, surprised to find Queen Alara alone, dressed in simpler attire than her usual ceremonial garb. Your Majesty, he bowed, maintaining the respectful distance he'd been instructed to keep. Approach. Human, she commanded, though her voice lacked the edge of their previous encounter. When he stood before her, she studied him with unnerving intensity. My physicians tell me that without your intervention I would have died before they arrived. Jackson nodded. The blade severed a critical vessel near your central regulatory organ. You had minutes, not hours. And there was truly no alternative to touching the sacred zones, none that would have saved you, he answered honestly. In emergency medicine, we don't have the luxury of perfect options. We choose between bad and worse. A silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken cultural divides and personal boundaries. On your world, Alara asked suddenly, are there no parts of the body considered too private to touch even in medical situations? Jackson considered this. We have concepts of privacy and consent, yes, but in life-threatening emergencies, those boundaries shift. A good medic respects dignity wherever possible while prioritizing survival. And you believe you struck this balance with me? I believe I did what was necessary, he replied, then added more softly, though I regret causing you distress. Something in his sincerity seemed to reach her. The Queen rose and moved to a window, her back to him, a vulnerable position that did not escape Jackson's notice. No one has ever risked so much for me, she said quietly. My attendants, my guards, even my family, they revere the crown, not the person wearing it. They would have let me die rather than violate sacred protocol. She turned, meeting his eyes. You saw me as a patient first, a queen second. I saw you as a person, Jackson corrected gently. That's what medicine is about. Ilara approached him close enough that he could see flecks of silver in her violet eyes. The council demands punishment. They believe you've committed sacrilege that can only be answered with severity. Jackson swallowed but maintained his composure. And what do you believe, Your Majesty? I believe, she said slowly, that traditions that don't bend sometimes break, and that perhaps there is wisdom in your human ways that we might learn from. She extended her hand, a shocking gesture from Lemurian royalty. I thank you, Medic Jackson, for my life. Stunned, Jackson carefully took her offered hand. The simple touch, freely given this time, carried weight beyond words. Tomorrow I will inform the council that you are to be appointed as my personal physician during my recovery, she announced. They will object, of course, but it gives us time. Time for what, Your Majesty? A smile touched her lips for the first time. Time for me to understand why a human would risk everything for an alien queen he barely knows. And perhaps time for me to understand something about myself as well. As Jackson left the chamber, both knew something fundamental had shifted between them, something neither protocol nor tradition had prepared them for. The palace gardens provided refuge from the scrutiny of the court. Here, among exotic flora that resembled Earth's plants yet shimmered with bioluminescence unique to Lemuria, Queen Ilara and Jackson walked side by side during her daily physical rehabilitation. Exercises. 2 weeks had passed since her proclamation appointing him as her personal physician, 2 weeks of outraged council meetings, whispered palace gossip and gradual healing, both physical and cultural. Your gait is improving, Jackson observed professionally, though his eyes lingered on her face rather than her stride. The tissue regeneration is progressing faster than I expected. We Lemurians heal quickly, Ilara replied, pausing beside a fountain that flowed with water tinted the same violet shade as her skin. It is our connection to our world that gives us this resilience. Jackson nodded, fascinated as always by the glimpses she offered into her physiology and culture. Each day revealed new layers of complexity to this woman who ruled an entire civilization, yet seemed increasingly human in her reactions and curiosities. Tell me more about Earth, she requested, settling onto an ornate bench, not the diplomatic reports or cultural exchange documents. Tell me about your life there. The request was becoming familiar. Their conversations had gradually shifted from formal medical consultations to genuine exchanges. Jackson sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance that had nonetheless diminished day by day. I grew up near an ocean, he began, smiling at the memory. My parents were scientists, marine biologists studying ecosystem rehabilitation. Our home was filled with specimens and research equipment. I think that's where my interest in healing began. You speak of them in past tense, Ilara observed quietly. They died in a research accident when I was 19, Jackson admitted. Their submersible malfunctioned at depth. Without warning, Ilara's hand moved to cover his, a gesture that would have scandalized the court had anyone witnessed it. In this, our worlds are not so different. Loss shapes us, whether human or Lemurian. The warmth of her touch sent an unexpected current through him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, rank and species seemed to dissolve. Is that why you became a medic? She asked, her voice softer. Because you couldn't save them? Partly, he acknowledged. But also because I learned then how fragile life is and how precious. Every life saved feels like balancing the scales somehow, including an alien queen's. There was a teasing quality to her voice that he'd never heard before. Especially hers, he replied with a small smile, though she's proven to be my most challenging patient. Ilara laughed, a musical sound that transformed her usually regal features into something more approachable, more real. And you, my most challenging subject. Most of my people still cannot look me in the eye when speaking, yet you debate medical procedures with me as though we were equals. Aren't we, beneath the titles and differences? The question hung between them, laden with implications neither was quite ready to name. Walk with me to the Eastern Gardens, she said suddenly, rising with newfound grace. There's something I wish to show you. They followed a path of luminescent stones to a secluded alcove where crystal formations created natural privacy. Within this sanctuary grew a single plant, similar to Earth's roses but with petals that shifted colors with each breeze. This is a soul bloom, Ilara explained. They're exceedingly rare, even on Lemuria. According to our traditions, they only flourish in places where truth has been spoken between souls who are... She hesitated, searching for the right word, connected. It's beautiful, Jackson murmured, understanding the significance of what she was sharing. I've visited this spot alone for years, she continued. The bloom has always been small, struggling. But look at it now. The plant stood taller, its blossoms fuller than Jackson could have imagined possible. Since you saved me, Ilara whispered, her fingers tentatively finding his again. It grows stronger each day. In the quiet sanctuary of the garden, surrounded by alien beauty, Jackson realized he was falling in love with more than just this world. And from the way Ilara's eyes shimmered as they met his, he dared to hope he wasn't alone in this impossible feeling. The Royal Observatory dome stood atop the highest spire of the palace, its crystalline walls offering an unobstructed view of Lumeria's 3 moons hanging like jewels in the night sky. Queen Ilara had dismissed her attendants hours ago, leaving only the most trusted guards stationed far below the spiral staircase that led to this private sanctuary. Jackson's footsteps echoed softly as he ascended the final steps, responding to a summons delivered not by royal messenger but by a handwritten note. A shocking departure from protocol that signaled the significance of this meeting. He found Ilara standing alone before the curved wall, her purple skin luminescent in the moonlight, blonde waves cascading down her back. She wore simple attire, a flowing silver garment rather than her formal regalia, and for a moment she looked less like a queen and more like a woman waiting for someone important to arrive. You came, she said without turning, having sensed his presence in that mysterious way of hers. Of course, Jackson replied, joining her at the viewport. Is everything all right? Are you experiencing pain? Ilara smiled, finally facing him. Always the medic first. No, my body heals well thanks to your care. It's not my physical wounds that concern me tonight. The 6 weeks since the assassination attempt had transformed them both. Jackson had learned the intricate customs of Lumerian society, while Ilara had gradually shed the rigid formality that separated her from genuine connection. Their daily sessions had evolved from medical necessity to cherished encounters where cultural barriers dissolved in favor of personal truths. Tomorrow, Ilara continued, the council will formally end your appointment as royal physician. Your diplomatic duties will resume and our daily meetings will cease. Jackson felt an unexpected hollowness form in his chest. I see, your recovery is complete then? According to all measures, yes. She stepped closer. And yet I find myself reluctant to return to how things were before. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken possibility. Beyond the windows, meteor streams painted the night with brilliant blue streaks. On your first day here, Ilara said, her voice barely above a whisper, you touched parts of me that no one was permitted to touch. I was furious, humiliated, but now I understand something I never expected to learn. What's that? Jackson asked, heart quickening. That there is strength in vulnerability. Her eyes met his, unguarded in a way that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. My entire life has been defined by barriers, physical, cultural, emotional. As queen, I must be untouchable, perfect, divine in the eyes of my people. Jackson remained silent, sensing she needed to continue without interruption. When you saved me, she went on, you didn't see a goddess or an alien sovereign. You saw a person who needed help, regardless of the consequences. You made me human in a way. A smile touched her lips. I've been angry about that, grateful for it, confused by it, and now? Now? Jackson prompted gently when she paused. Ilara took his hand and, with deliberate slowness, placed it against her heart, a gesture of profound intimacy in Lumerian culture. Now I find myself longing for that humanity, she admitted, for the freedom to be seen as Ilara, not just Queen of Lumeria, for the right to choose who touches not just my body, but my heart. Jackson's breath caught as he felt the rapid rhythm beneath his palm. Ilara, I know the impossibility of this, she said quickly. Different species, different worlds, different destinies. And yet... He silenced her doubts by slowly raising his other hand to cup her cheek, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't.